Yo.
Hey.
Yeah.
So this is day 2 of the SNCC. Yeah. I didn't even know my own event. We have Adam Wheeler with us to start the day off. Yeah. He's the creator of the Secret Protectors. Yeah, he's got the shirt and everything. So yeah, who are you? And what else you got going on?
Well, I mean, I live in the UK. At the moment, we're in a lockdown. So to be honest, I don't have an awful lot of other things going on. I have spent most this year kind of watching all the good TV that I could, and even some bad TV because I've run out of good TV to watch. I've rewatched The Sopranos for like the 3rd time as well. But we also had the Kickstarter this year, so I have got that to be thankful for. It was our second Kickstarter, although it's kind of our 3rd. I mean, I was saying to you just before we came on that I suck with, like, as I said to you, like, because we've messaged before. I've never actually spoken to you before, so it's cool to get to speak to you, and thank you for having me on with you guys. It's really cool to get to communicate with some people outside of the bubble. I mean, it was our 3rd Kickstarter officially, because our first one, we got it all set up with ready to go, and then I just pressed launch to see what would happen, not thinking that was the actual launch button. Like, I thought that it would take me through to the screen to confirm it. It didn't, so it was like nuts. So we quickly filled that one with whatever and set up a new page, and then did it at the right time. So this was our second and 3rd Kickstarter. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some people actually do that. I always forget, even though I'm not new to Kickstarter, but anytime I see that button, I'm like, wait, can I press this now? I'm not going to, just in case. But
yeah, how many have you done?
So we did 2 successful ones right now.
Yeah.
Are you counting Chronicles of Horror?
Yeah, I'm counting that because we published the thing.
Wouldn't that be 3?
What's the other one? Oh, 3. We did 3. Wow, I forgot about the first one.
We did this many.
Yeah. So the first one we did was the original Seer Chronicles, and that was issue 1. And then it was that, and we got enough to print our first solo series ink, which a lot of people liked, and so we're coming out with a second one of that next year, hoping. And then this year we did 2. We were trying to do way more than that, but if I did that, I think this thing wouldn't have happened, just because I would be just drained completely.
Yeah.
Kickstarter does that. So we did the first one, and then the second one was Seer Chronicles 1 and 2, but the first one is remastered. So anybody that's getting the new first one is it's 20 something more pages, 21 more pages. Yeah, 20 more pages. And yeah, and then there's the second issue, which just looks awesome.
Amazing, man. Yeah. I'm the same as you, man. I find, well, Kickstarter, it's all consuming. Like, every moment of the day, once it's running, because your name's attached to it, you want to make a success of it, best you can. And yeah, I mean, literally every waking moment is almost, what can I do next? What can I do next? It's like reaching out to people, trying to, hopefully get people a little bit enthusiastic about it. And people are like, yeah, I'm going to back it. And you're like, can you back it now? Because you get that late sort of run of people, thankfully. It's just, yeah.
For our Seer Chronicles one that we did this year, it was the first super successful one that we've done so far, minus Chronicles of Horror, but Chronicles of Horror had a lower goal. This one had 1,500, yeah, and that's not super high or anything, but didn't think we were going to get $1,000 in the first day, and we did. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess, building an audience works. So we actually have that as a panel later on in the day. But yeah, so we got like 1,000 something in the first day. And then like, I don't want to, like, I would like to get funded on the first day for like in the future, but like, it's really like a slow crawl after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got up to, I want to say around sort of maybe around the 50% fairly early. And then for us, sort of everything after that was quite, a bit of a slog. I mean, it's interesting because with a lot of you guys, when you're based in America, like, because before doing a Kickstarter, I was, trying to find out the best way of going about doing one, because, it's kind of obvious, if you don't want to suck at something, at least try and, see what other people have done and, how they've worked it. And one of the big things was, like you were just saying, try and build a bit of an audience first of all. So when Ben and I, Ben's the artist, Ben Nunn, when we both teamed up to work on this, I mean, it's gone really quick. This was back in like 2017 when we first got together, and we're like equal partners on it. So he has 50%, I have 50%, just because I think it works best for both of us that way. Like I think we both benefit from working as part of a team where we can both, go over the ideas and see what works, see what doesn't work. But saying that, I mean, obviously he does a hell of a lot more work than I do because he's the artist and I'm just, writing things, etc. But yeah, so he leaves sort of like, the social media side of things to me, which I suck at, but I try my best. But yeah, so we built up our audience first of all by we did issue 1 and we did some like events and stuff with that, and we just tried to get people's email addresses just so we could put them on our mailing list sort of thing. And I mean, I hate sort of bothering people more often than what I have to. So I mean, I could probably do with emailing people more often, but I don't want to unless I've got something that's worth their time. I don't really want to, because I know what I'm like on my, like if I receive emails from people like incessantly, even if they were probably going to offer me something really good, I'll probably just end up deleting it if I'm getting emails all the time. But yeah, no, we built up a bit of a following, thankfully, with issue 1, which, like yourself, in our recent Kickstarter was for volume 1, so issues 1 to 4. And as I'm sure you guys know, like when you start printing single issues, like after time, it can be a bit costly, especially if you've got to manage an inventory of issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. It's a bit like finicky because then you've got to work out how many you're going to need of each issue, etc., etc. So when we come to doing this one, we thought, you know what, we had printed issues 1 and 2. That was our first Kickstarter, but we thought this time we would just put 3 and 4 all in one book with 1 and 2. Ben went through and redone a fair amount of issue 1 as well because he hated issue 1, as I think most artists do probably when this was Ben's first comic basically. So I think having looked back on it, he was unhappy with a fair amount of it by the looks of it. So he redid quite a lot of it. I'd probably say like a third of it was redone, but nearly the whole thing was relettered because Ben does all of it. He does lettering, inks, pencils, colours. He does everything. So, I'm very fortunate to have found someone who believes in, the Secret Protectors as much as I do. But yeah, here we are. We've got volume 1 now, which I feel like is a real milestone. When you're putting all your effort into something like this, when you see these sort of, issue 1, issue 2, and then, oh wow, we've now got like, a full volume 1. I think it's about 160 pages. I hold it up actually. We had it arrive earlier on today. This is issue 1, volume 1. So like I said, I mean, it's a beast of a book. So I'm looking forward to finally getting round to. I sent out an update earlier on for our Kickstarter people that are back.
Say that's about the size of like a typical graphic novel. So yeah, cool.
Exactly. I sent out an update earlier on, letting everyone know that they've arrived. The only thing we're waiting on now is our art prints, which again should arrive any day now. And then I can finally sit down and, start packing people's items up. And I can't wait. And my wife can't wait even more because literally for about the last because I knew I was doing this Kickstarter this year, I've been hoarding boxes. So anytime a box arrives, I don't live in a particularly big place. We live in like a 2-bedroom. It's not a flat. It's not an apartment. Like it's called a masonette. I don't know if you guys have like masonettes in America.
Is that like a townhome?
So it's all on one floor, but we have the garden. But then there's an upstairs which is separate. If that makes sense. So
kind of like a vertical duplex.
Yeah.
I guess so. So yeah, we don't have loads of space, but fortunately it's just us and the dog. So the second bedroom at the moment has become like, I've probably got about 40 boxes in there. I've got like all my envelopes as well, but just I thought anytime I have like a good box, I'm going to save it for this. So I've got loads and loads of boxes in there ready for, sitting down and finally shipping things out, which I just cannot wait to get done.
Yeah, Greg saw my old apartment. I used to do that because I sold stuff on eBay and I sold random stuff, so I never knew like how big I might need the box. So I saved every box. So I didn't have a dining room.
Yeah.
I had a box storage room.
A post office.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we again really lucky. Like literally, my nearest post office is just around the corner, so I can literally walk to it in 30 seconds. I'm so well placed to get all this stuff sent out.
Mine's pretty not that far away either. I can drive. Brilliant. I could drive to mine. It's technically around the corner, I guess.
But mine's a 30-second drive. Yeah, it was.
But yeah, for our Seer Chronicles, like for printing, we're printing 1 and 2. But once we get to maybe the third, that would either be all together or probably wait until the 5th. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because 6, or maybe until 6, I don't know. But 6
closes the series,
yeah, because 6 closes a huge arc, actually 2 huge arcs, and then it opens up to the rest of the story for the rest. So 6 is already a graphic novel in itself until it gets edited, until he comes and starts chopping things away. But I started running tables instead of writing all the issues out. So after I wrote up to issue 5, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to keep writing until he starts looking at the stuff. So he's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's just do the table. I'm like, okay. So it's way faster too, because I already kind of had things written out. I just have to read the actual dialogue that would go along with it. So I have motivation of the character, because that's a huge thing. Why are they doing this thing? Why are they there? Because, I used to be like, oh, they just have to be there. And Dylan's like, well, why? I'm like, I don't know. And then there's plot points and other things like that. So I just list all that, and I say how many pages I might use. So for the 6th issue, it's up to 100 pages or something like that. It might not be 100 pages, but it's going to be somewhere around that.
No, it's not.
No, that was but I was trying to make that kind of a graphic novel of itself, because it kind of ends everything. But we probably will put 1 to 6 in a graphic novel format. So, and then
I was listening to some of last night. You were talking to, you was talking with. It was about the world building and character building stuff. It was you, Chuck, another Greg. Is it Ty?
Tier.
Is it Ty? Tier. I can't remember. There was someone else. I can't remember who it was now.
Josh Harris.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting listening to what everyone was saying, and I completely agree with the points that were being made around kind of what your characters can and can't do. Powers wise is kind of irrelevant. You really sort of want to figure out why the characters want to do anything in the first place. What makes them get up. And I don't know about you. Is another person you're talking to again? I'm sorry, I can't recall who it was now, but you were talking about how in your mind you had about probably 50 odd issues kind of written in your mind for this, which is a hell of a lot of issues. But I don't know what your sort of process was. Personally, what I found, I kind of came up with the idea for the Secret Protectors without really knowing that I had come up with the idea for the Secret Protectors, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. I didn't sit down. I wasn't consciously thinking to myself, I want to do this story. The story, if anything, kind of found me. Like I used to play, this is when I was a teenager. I'm like 35 now. When I was a teenager, I used to play City of Heroes. I don't know if you guys ever played it or heard of it.
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it was a bit like World of Warcraft, but with superheroes instead of like orcs and goblins and stuff. And it shut down in like 2012. But on that game, you could make your own superhero. You could give them, whatever powers you wanted, and you could write them a backstory. And I couldn't used to be able to play a character unless I wrote them a backstory. I don't know why, just the way my brain worked, So I had all these characters. In the end, I got like addicted to just making characters, even if I didn't really play with them much. I had like all these like really low leveled characters. It's like on like an MMO, it takes like years to get a character up to like a decent level. And I'd kind of get bored and move on to the next, story before then. So yeah, I ended up like saving all these characters in my head, and just I don't know, like over years watching other stories take place, be it in comics or in film, I just sort of settled on the idea of, I've actually got a story I think that would work, and that's kind of where it sort of all fermented to begin with. Weird as it is, how did you come up with your sort of premise, idea, like setting?
I was bored one day, and then once I started writing, because I just opened my laptop like 2014 or something. I'm not gonna say the whole story, but I was watching the show that just was reruns. Like that's all it is now. Everybody loves Raymond, so I just kept watching that. I was watching that, and I was like, I've seen this like a million times. And then I just started typing, and I was like, oh, first I saw like song lyrics that I used to write like forever ago. I was like, oh, I never did anything with that. That sucks. So they're just still chilling in like a folder somewhere. But I'm going to use them in our comics at some point.
That's cool.
Yeah. Because we have this whole like world. Well, obviously we do world building like to the max. But I started writing, and it was just about like a firefighter goes into a like research lab. That like the first sentence is something along the lines of that. And then I was like, oh, research lab, like that kind of like, goes to like, Oscorp and stuff like that. That could be a superhero thing. But like I didn't know that until I was like writing, like I got to like halfway through the like 1,200 page story thing that I was writing. And then my grandma, I like mentioned it to my grandma at like a Thanksgiving or something a couple of years ago, and she's like, oh, that's like a graphic novel. And she's like, how many pages do you have now? I'm like, oh, it's almost like 1,200. She's just like looking at me like I have 3 heads. And I was like, yeah. So then after it was in like story format, I had to break it into, I broke it down into like a storyboard format. So it wasn't even like a script for comics, because that's the first script I kind of gave our artist last year for the first original issue. It was more. I
can imagine you like in this room. Do you know that it's a meme all the time. You see Charlie out of Always Sunny, like of all the things plastered on the wall, and you're just looking at the guy like this.
There's no Pepe Silva.
This is how it all joins together. And everyone's just like, your grands look at you like, what's happening?
So when I was writing that, like for the first 3 months of writing, I barely slept, and that's not like a joke. Like I literally barely slept, because anytime I had an idea like floating in my head, I was like, oh, I can use this person, because I use people that are in like my life for the most part, and I either use their personality that it actually is, or like there's a certain character that we use. I kind of tweaked him a little, and I made him like just a piece of shit. So he's a really interesting character that we have.
Just only a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm gonna turn that up a little bit. That was at a 6 there. You don't want to see me at a 10. So, so he like just became a really interesting character after like Dylan's like, let's like go more into his story, and I was like, oh, I was just gonna kill him. And he's like, no, we're not going to just kill people. You're not George R. R. Martin. So I was like, oh, okay. So I started turning into like comics and stuff after just not sleeping for months. And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. And then I had to find an artist, and actually where I found Dylan was like on Craigslist. He was the first and only person that like answered my ad, but I wasn't looking for a graphic designer. I wasn't looking for like an artist because I didn't really know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not really what you need. And I can't really draw, but I can like do graphic design stuff. And then like we started talking for like a year before we actually met. And then we met, and then
did a blood oath.
Blood brother.
It's weird how these things work. I mean, did you already live fairly near to one another?
I didn't even know that we were anywhere that nearby. So I did live around here, like where I live now, well, a city away. And he actually lived in where I live right now. Not the exact apartment, but down the street. And then I moved to Florida because, you know, sometimes people make terrible decisions. So I moved to Florida with a friend, and I lived in a dining room for like 3 months, and that was terrible. So then I moved back here, and then I was like, well, I'm not moving back there. So then we actually met, and the first place I think we met was at like a networking like thing. I think that was the first place we ever like actually like met. Maybe it was like actually at his apartment, and then the next time we met, we went.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I think we went there after we had first met.
Yeah. But like, one of the first times we met, one of the first times we met, we like clicked like basically instantly, because like he's like, yeah, so like what do you want to do out of this like company? And then I like, well, not even a company, like this comic. It wasn't even going to be a full like company and stuff. And then we just started branching off of each other, like what we were like talking about. He's like, well, I know stuff about marketing. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know anything about that. Then we started talking about like this guy Gary Vee and all this other stuff. I should have a dollar jar every time I mention his name.
Yeah, it really is. He's hiding on the wall.
So
I just think it's weird how things work out. You know, like me and Ben, I didn't grow up far from where I live now. Like where I live now is probably like 10 miles or so from where I grew up. And it was only when I moved in, you know, me and my wife now own our place. We moved in, and I just, you know, I'd had this idea for ages, and I just kind of like you were saying, it sort of became a little bit all encompassing. Like you couldn't really, there was no any minute that your brain was working, like even if you were trying to do other things, you were like being drawn back to this thing. So like you, I sort of, you know, opened up the laptop and did some writing and bits and pieces, and I can't draw at all. So I started thinking, you know, what could I do with this? And because in my heart it is, you know, very much a superhero story, I couldn't see myself. I'm not nearly like talented enough to write it as a book. And also, you know, if it's superheroes, it has to be a comic. You know, it has to be. So, you know, I started looking for, you know, someone, you know, who I could work with. And it turns out like Ben literally lived like 5 minutes down the road. So I found him online just randomly. And yeah, he lives like 5 minutes down the road from where I had moved to. And it's just like so weird that, as what you're saying there, like, you know, you sort of moved around a bit and you've been talking for a while, but then it turns out you only kind of live not far from each other anyway.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? You know, like how, you know, it all sort of, you know, converges at the right time.
Yeah. That was like, he's like, oh, we should actually like try to meet. And I was like, I'm in Florida now. And he's like, oh. And then we had our first meeting. Our first meeting like together was him, me, and this other guy that we had as a business partner. And yeah, he didn't really work out, but
did he get killed off then, or
he didn't do
really
do much of anything?
No, he's a good kid, but he just didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, so he didn't do anything.
But if I had him now, he would be actually helpful, I think, because he would actually we would actually have tasks for him to do things, Because
Mm.
Yeah,
I was just trying to figure out like what.
Yeah, in the beginning he was like bored because we were doing all the building phase and not like the growth phase because nothing was built yet, and basically he was impatient. So like again, like he's a nice kid. I have no qualms or anything. It was just like I'm kind of glad that he left early because like it would have sucked to split the company with somebody who didn't want to do the hard work in the beginning and only wanted to reap benefits later.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm open to someone coming in and giving me a boatload of money. If they want to split things, that's fine. Like they can come in, like not at the ground floor. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So, everyone needs to pull in the same direction.
That means that they took the time to build that wealth, which means they still are patient enough. They can see, like that's the difference. He was young enough. He hadn't built anything yet.
Yeah. And I actually found him on like a blog somewhere, and I was actually like just looking for someone to like help us with anything, and then he just was super like enthusiastic and stuff. And yeah, he's a cool kid, just like kid. I didn't know how old he was at first, and then I found out his age. I was like, oh, should have probably asked you that before.
That's what I asked. I asked Greg because at that time I thought Greg knew the guy. I was like, he was like friends with him, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh no, I kind of met him like I met you, just someplace else. And I was like, where? He's like Reddit or something like it.
Yeah, it was like something like that.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh. I'm like, well, we're about to sign a contract for business.
Yeah.
Some more details.
Yeah. So, are you guys both? Are you both born and raised New York, or?
Yeah, I was born in Albany, New York, and then lived in near Saratoga, New York, most of my life. Then I moved to the Albany area. I lived there, worked there, and now I live in Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool. Been around there, man.
Yeah, I just live in upstate New York. For those 3 months, I lived in Florida.
Yeah,
that was terrible, and then I moved back.
See, it's so weird. Like, so I've been to the States a few times. I went to California last year because me and my wife got married last year, and we did our honeymoon in California. We did like a little road trip. We did like a little road trip, hired a car, and drove around a bunch of different places and saw all the sites. As many sites as you can see in like 12 days.
Did you go to Northern California or Southern California?
We landed in San Francisco, and we did a whole route, and we went like from San Francisco to Sonoma to like over to Lake Tahoe. We went up into Vegas we went to Virginia City. It's like an old cowboy sort of town that's like got all like the wooden sidewalks and stuff. It was really cool, like for a touristy sort of place.
Yeah,
it was really cool. And then we drove all the way back down, and we ended up in LA eventually. Like I said, it was 12 days, and we stayed in a bunch of different places. But then I've also been to Manhattan a couple of times, and it's just so like, because the UK, it's like, I'm not like knocking anywhere outside of London, but London is kind of, it is the capital. And, it's by far, in a way, the biggest city. There's not really any comparison. Whereas it's weird in America, in the States, you've got like big cities, like in a lot of places. So like you saying you move from, New York to Florida. I know, it might not have worked out, might not have been for you, but the fact that you've got that ability to move around so freely between like these massive cities, these different places. I don't know. I just think I've always been kind of a little bit jealous of that to a certain degree, because I think that's cool. Yeah, like I do. I think it's cool that you've got all these, massive places. Whereas in the UK, we've got Manchester, we've got Liverpool, Birmingham, but I don't know. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Well, if I lived probably in a different area in Florida, I probably would have still been there. Maybe, I don't know. Because people are like, oh, why are you moving back to New York? And I was like, well, my stepdad died. So that's why. Not like I wasn't like a huge fan of him. But like how he went was like shitty. So, but like, I was like, oh, this is the perfect excuse to like leave this place. So I left. I was like, oh, great. So I lived in a dining room there, like in a house that had like 8-10 people in total. I like privacy. I had no privacy because I was in a dining room, and like right now, not even like a dining room really. It was like a den that was connected to their kitchen, and the kitchen is like an open concept kind of. So like I had no privacy at all. Our first meeting that we had, like video chatting, the house that I was in, that guy that was that owned the house, he was like cutting tile in like the room like next to where I was.
Yeah, not even a table saw, a tile saw. So
Yeah,
ear piercingly sharp.
yeah. So like all you hear is and like, what is happening? I'm like, oh, he's like cutting tile over his bathroom or something. Does he know we're doing a meeting? Yeah, he doesn't care. It's his house.
He does not give what in it. Yeah.
He gives about that many fucks. Just